The afternoon light spilled through the open barn door like liquid gold, and the dust motes danced in its glow. I stood there, still as the wooden beam beside me, watching the tiny specks swirl and shimmer in the air. It was the kind of beauty that almost made you forget the quiet ache sitting in your chest. Almost. That day, I wasn't watching the light. I was watching him. Liam. Our new ranch hand. He was bent over a bale of hay, lifting it with an ease that made his shirt cling to his back. The muscles beneath his tanned skin flexed like coiled ropes, and the late sunlight kissed every curve of his strength. I shouldn't have been watching him. I shouldn't have noticed. But ever since he arrived 3 weeks ago, something in me had begun to shift, slowly, silently, like the ground giving way beneath your feet. My husband, Ethan, had hired him. Said the farm needed another pair of hands. Ethan was good that way, practical, dependable, solid. He was the kind of man who fixed fences before they broke, paid bills before they were due, and loved in quiet, predictable ways. He was my comfort, my safety, my forever. Or at least he had been. But lately, Ethan's presence felt like an old blanket, familiar, soft, and warm, but lacking the spark that used to set my heart racing. And then Liam appeared. He was different. Not loud or brash, just present. The kind of man who moved with purpose, who made hard work look effortless, and who spoke only when he had something worth saying. At first, I told myself it was just curiosity, just a harmless awareness. But then came the glances. Those brief, stolen glances that burned hotter than any summer sun. At first, I thought I imagined them. His eyes lingering a heartbeat too long when I brought him iced tea, the slight curl of his lips when he caught me watching from the porch. But today, there was no mistaking it. The clang of metal filled the air as Liam worked in the corral, hammering nails into a broken gate. The steady rhythm echoed through the quiet fields. I told myself I was just checking on the horses, Storm and Willow, but Ethan was away at a conference, and the silence of the ranch made my pulse a little too loud in my ears. When Liam looked up, his gaze caught mine. And this time, he didn't look away. The world seemed to narrow until there was nothing but the two of us, his sweat-slicked skin glinting in the sun, my breath caught somewhere between fear and fascination. His eyes traced the line of my neck, the curve of my collarbone, and then met mine again. That look. It felt like standing at the edge of a storm. Dangerous. Beautiful. Unavoidable. I turned quickly, pretending to stroke Willow's mane, though my hand trembled against her silken coat. My mind screamed reason, but my heart was already wandering down a dangerous path. Ethan loved me. He always had. But love, when it settles, becomes routine, quiet dinners, polite smiles, the same soft kiss before bed. Liam was wildfire. And I had forgotten how it felt to burn. That evening, I sat on the porch as the sky blushed pink and gold. The day had cooled, but my thoughts hadn't. From the barn, I could hear Liam's faint humming, a low, tuneless melody that sent shivers through the dusk. I don't know what made me do it, but I poured a pitcher of lemonade, placed some cookies on a tray, and carried them toward the barn. He turned when I stepped in. The sunlight framed him, outlining the shape of his shoulders, the strength of his arms. "Thank you, ma'am," he said softly, taking the glass from my hand. His voice was deep, rich, the kind that lingered long after the words had faded. I nodded, unable to meet his eyes. "It's a hot one today." "It is," he replied, taking a long sip. "But work doesn't stop for the sun." His throat worked as he swallowed, and for reasons I couldn't explain, I found myself unable to look away. He caught me staring and smiled. The air between us changed, thick, electric, alive. Something wordless passed between us then. Something dangerous. I turned quickly, my pulse racing as I walked back toward the house. But I could feel his gaze on me. It clung to my back like heat, refusing to let go. That night, I couldn't sleep. The memory of his eyes, the way they stripped me bare, haunted every corner of my mind. I told myself it was nothing, just a fleeting moment. But deep down, I already knew it wasn't. Something had begun, and I couldn't stop it. The next morning arrived cloaked in quiet mist. The sun had not yet broken through the horizon, and the ranch lay still, suspended between night and day. I stood by the kitchen window, fingers wrapped around a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. From where I stood, I could see him. Liam. He was out by the stables again, his silhouette moving through the fog, tall and sure. He worked like a man who belonged to the earth, his every motion steady and deliberate. Something about that steadiness drew me in even more. I should have turned away. I should have poured another cup and gone back upstairs to my husband. But Ethan was still asleep, his arm draped carelessly across the bed, his breathing deep and even. It had been weeks since he had reached for me in the night. I watched the steam rise from my coffee and disappear, just like the warmth between us had. By the time I stepped outside, the air was cool and damp. The grass beneath my bare feet was wet with dew, and the world felt hushed, like it was holding its breath. Liam turned as he heard me approach, his expression unreadable. "Morning," he said, wiping his hands on a rag. "Morning," I replied softly. "You are up early." "Always am. The horses like routine. They trust it." He smiled faintly, and I felt something flutter deep inside me. "Would you like some breakfast?" I asked before I could stop myself. His brow lifted slightly. "That is kind of you, ma'am." "Call me Elena," I said quickly. "Please." He hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "All right, Elena." Hearing my name in his voice did something to me I could not explain. It sounded softer, more intimate, like a secret only we shared. Back in the kitchen, I served him eggs and toast while he sat at the small wooden table by the window. The morning light had found its way in, bathing his face in a soft glow. He looked up at me once, and that single look was enough to make me forget everything else. "Your husband is lucky," he said quietly. I froze. Lucky. To have someone who cares this much. My heart stumbled. The words were harmless on the surface, but his tone carried weight, an undercurrent that made the air tremble. After breakfast, he thanked me and returned to work, but the tension lingered in the air like perfume. Every time I glanced out the window, I found my eyes searching for him, tracing his movements, memorizing his shape against the light. That evening, as the sun bled red across the sky, Ethan returned home. He kissed my cheek distractedly, his phone already in his hand. He talked about business, about bills, about how the harvest might come early this year. I nodded and smiled, but my mind was far away. When he finally went to bed, I stepped outside. The night was alive with the chirping of crickets and the distant hoot of an owl. The barn light glowed faintly in the distance. I should have gone back inside. I knew I should have. But I walked toward the barn anyway. Liam was there, finishing up the evening chores. He looked up when I entered, his eyes reflecting the golden glow of the lantern. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence between us was thick and electric. "You should not be out here this late," he said softly. "I could not sleep," I replied. He set down the brush in his hand and took a slow step toward me. My breath hitched. "Ethan would not like you wandering around the barn at night," he murmured. "I am not wandering," I said, though my voice trembled. "I came to see the horses." He stopped in front of me, close enough that I could smell the faint scent of hay and sweat on his skin. His eyes locked on mine, and for a heartbeat, the world ceased to exist. "You are lying," he whispered. And he was right. I could feel the pull between us, dangerous and magnetic, a current neither of us could resist. His hand brushed mine, just barely, but it was enough to send fire through my veins. "I should go," I whispered. "Should you?" he asked, his voice low and rough. The question hung in the air, heavy and charged. I turned toward the door, but my feet would not move. He reached out then, his fingers grazing my arm, gentle but sure. I froze, caught between guilt and desire. "Elena," he said my name like a prayer. "You do not have to pretend." I looked up at him, and in that moment, the truth was written across both our faces. The ache, the loneliness, the longing for something neither of us had the right to want. I took a shaky breath and stepped back, forcing myself to break the moment before it consumed me entirely. "I should go," I repeated, this time louder. He nodded slowly, though his eyes never left mine. "As you wish." I left the barn, but my heart did not follow me home. It stayed behind with him, tangled in the unspoken words that filled the air between us. That night, I dreamed of him. Of his touch, of his voice, of the way his name might sound whispered against my skin. When I woke, my pillow was damp with tears I could not explain. Something inside me had awakened, something wild and terrifying. And I knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning. The days that followed felt like a slow burn I could not escape. Every sunrise carried his name, every breath I took seemed to echo his presence. I tried to keep my distance, to convince myself that what had almost happened in the barn was nothing more than a moment of weakness. But the heart is not a logical creature. Each time I saw Liam, the walls I had carefully built began to crack. His eyes would find mine, steady and unreadable, and I would feel the world tilt slightly off its axis. One afternoon, the sky opened up without warning. Rain poured over the ranch, soft at first, then fierce and unrelenting. The wind swept through the trees, and thunder rolled in the distance like a warning. Ethan had gone into town, leaving me alone to watch the storm from the porch. I stood there, the rain misting my skin, when I saw Liam running toward the main house. He was soaked to the bone, his shirt clinging to his body, his hair dripping into his eyes. "Miss Elena," he called out, breathless, "you should not be standing out here." His voice was drowned by the storm, but I heard every word. "I am fine," I said, though I was shivering. He climbed the steps 2 at a time and stopped in front of me. The air between us was alive again, humming with something wild and forbidden. He reached out and brushed a strand of wet hair from my face. His touch lingered for a heartbeat too long. "You will catch a cold," he murmured. The way he said it was not a warning. It was something softer, something that made my pulse race. I stepped back, but my body betrayed me. I could not look away from him. "Come inside," I said quietly. He hesitated, his eyes searching mine, as if asking for permission for something much deeper than shelter. I turned and walked into the house, feeling him follow behind me. The sound of rain filled the silence between us as we stood by the fireplace. I handed him a towel, but when our fingers touched, the spark was unmistakable. Neither of us moved. He took the towel slowly, but his eyes never left mine. There was something unspoken between us, something that had been building for weeks. The air grew heavy with it. "Liam," I whispered, "we cannot keep doing this." He stepped closer, his voice low. "Doing what?" "Feeling this," I said, my voice trembling. He looked at me, his eyes dark and full of emotion. "Then stop feeling it." The challenge in his tone made my heart twist. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But as he reached for me, I knew I was lost. His hand found the back of my neck, his touch firm yet gentle, and I forgot how to breathe. When his lips met mine, the world outside ceased to exist. The storm, the thunder, the guilt, all faded into silence. There was only the heat between us, the taste of rain on his skin, the ache of everything I had been denying. I knew it was wrong. I knew it was dangerous. But in that moment, right and wrong blurred into one impossible truth. I wanted him. He pulled back just enough to look at me. His breathing was uneven. "Tell me to stop, Elena." I could not. Instead, I closed the distance between us, my hands finding their way to his face. The kiss deepened, raw and desperate, fueled by months of longing we could no longer hide. When it finally broke, I pressed my forehead to his chest, trying to steady my heartbeat. "This cannot happen again," I whispered. He nodded, but the way his hand lingered on my waist told another story. The rain outside began to fade into a soft drizzle, and a strange stillness filled the room. I could hear the fire crackling, the rhythm of his breath, and my own heart pleading for something I could never fully have. "Ethan will be home soon," I said, forcing myself to step away. He nodded again, his eyes following me as I turned toward the stairs. For a moment, I thought he might say something, but he didn't. He just stood there, watching, as if memorizing the moment in silence. Upstairs, I stared at my reflection in the mirror. My lips were still swollen from his kiss. My eyes were filled with something I barely recognized. Desire, guilt, fear. I pressed my palms against the cool glass and whispered to my reflection, "What have you done, Elena?" That night, I lay beside Ethan, pretending to be asleep. He reached for me in his half-conscious state, his touch unfamiliar, foreign even. It felt strange to have him close after so long. His scent, his warmth, everything that once felt safe now felt like a reminder of my betrayal. I turned away, tears slipping silently down my cheeks. Outside, the storm had passed. But inside me, it was just beginning. The morning after the storm was too quiet. The air felt heavy, the sky pale and still, as though the world itself was holding its breath. Ethan had already left for town before sunrise, and the house felt empty in a way that made my chest ache. I stood at the window, my thoughts tangled like the vines on the fence. Every corner of the house whispered his name. Liam. The taste of his kiss still lingered on my lips, and no matter how many times I told myself to forget, my heart refused to listen. That afternoon, I walked down to the stables. The scent of hay and earth welcomed me like an old memory. Liam was there, fixing the fence that had come loose in the storm. He looked up as I approached, his eyes softer than I remembered. "You should not be here," he said quietly, though there was no anger in his voice. "I had to see you," I whispered. "Just once more." He sighed, setting the hammer aside. "Elena, if Ethan ever finds out—" "He will not," I interrupted, though even as I said it, my voice trembled. "But I cannot pretend nothing happened." He stepped closer, his expression filled with something I could not name. "You are not the kind of woman who belongs to someone like me," he said softly. "You are meant for the world above, not the dust I walk in." "Do not say that," I whispered. "You make me feel alive, Liam. Do you understand that? For the first time in years, I can breathe." He looked at me for a long moment, then reached out and touched my face, his thumb brushing away a tear I did not know had fallen. "And yet, this love will break you," he said. "It will break us both." The wind stirred around us, and I felt the truth of his words settle deep in my chest. I wanted to tell him we could run away, start over somewhere no one knew our names. But before I could speak, a sound echoed across the yard, the sharp cry of one of the horses from the lower paddock. Liam turned instinctively. "Something is wrong," he said, already moving. I followed him, my heart racing. The rain from the night before had turned the ground soft and slick. As we reached the fence line, one of the younger horses was caught in the mud near the stream, panicked and thrashing. Without hesitation, Liam jumped into the water, his boots sinking deep. "Be careful," I shouted, my voice breaking. He tried to calm the animal, his voice steady, but the water was rising faster than I realized. The current tugged at his legs, pulling harder with every second. "Liam, please," I cried, stepping closer. "Stay back," he called, but his voice was fading. He freed the horse with one final push, but as the animal scrambled to safety, Liam slipped. For one breathless moment, our eyes met, a look I will never forget. Then the current took him. I ran into the water, screaming his name, but the stream swallowed the sound. The cold bit through my clothes, and my hands searched the surface, desperate, shaking, empty. By the time the others arrived, the current had carried him too far. They pulled me back to the shore, my body trembling, my heart shattering with every heartbeat. Later that evening, they found him downstream, still and silent beneath the willow tree. The same tree where we had first met. I could not bring myself to see him. I could not bear the weight of what I had caused. Days passed in slow motion. Ethan returned, his face drawn with confusion and concern. He held me as I wept, believing my tears were for the loss of a worker, not for the man who had held my soul. At night, I would walk to the edge of the field where the willow stood. Its branches swayed gently in the wind, and I would close my eyes, imagining his voice in the rustle of its leaves. "I am sorry," I whispered one night, my voice breaking. "If love is a sin, then mine was the sweetest of them all." The moonlight bathed the ground in silver, and for a fleeting moment, I felt him there, not as a shadow or a ghost, but as a warmth inside my chest. It was enough to make me smile through my tears. Life moved on, but I remained beneath that willow, trapped between memory and silence. Ethan and I stayed together, our marriage a hollow echo of what once was. He never asked about the distance in my eyes. Perhaps he knew. Perhaps he chose not to. Sometimes, when the wind is soft and the night is still, I can still feel Liam's hand in mine. I can hear his voice in the whispering branches, telling me that love, no matter how forbidden, leaves a mark that time cannot erase. And so I stay, watching, remembering, loving him in the only way I can now, in silence. Have you ever loved someone you could never have, yet found pieces of yourself in that love anyway? If you have ever felt a love that defied reason, one that changed you forever, tell me in the comments below. I want to hear your story. Do not forget to like this video, share it with someone who believes in the power of love, turn on notifications so you never miss the next story, and subscribe to join me for more whispers of the heart. Until next time, this is Elena, signing off beneath the willow.